Groundhog Day is a movie that's sneakily become something of a pillar of American cinema. Even if someone hasn't seen it, odds are that they could at least tell you the film's central conflict. A man is stuck living the same day over and over again.
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again?
Weatherman Phil Connors finds himself in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, covering Groundhog Day for the 4th year in a row. After getting through the day once, Phil wakes up the next morning to find that not only is he still in Punxsutawney, but it's still February 2nd.
What the hell?
Phil goes on to relive the same day hundreds or possibly thousands of times. We, the viewer, are never really given a reason why Phil is reliving this day, but it's clear that Phil is a jerk who only cares about himself, and he seems to be doomed to relive the day until he learns to care for the people around him.
I could never love someone like you, Phil, because you'll never love anyone but yourself.
This is a perfectly logical explanation, and I like that the movie never explicitly tells the audience why Phil is trapped in the loop. If anything, I think an actual explanation would damage the audience's ability to engage with the film's metaphor. What I think is more interesting to study, though, is just how long Phil spends in the loop and how he chooses to spend his time the longer he's trapped. In fact, regarding Phil's evolution, I think the film makes a rather bold philosophical assertion. Given eternity, humans will choose beauty. Let's break that down into 2 parts. Firstly, eternity. This might be a bold jump of me to make, but I think Phil spends an eternity in the loop. Not a literal eternity, but more of a functional eternity.
And her?
It's Alice. Came over here from Ireland when she was a baby. She lived in Erie most of her life.
He's right.
Phil has no clue how long he's trapped, and neither do we. As evidenced by his broken pencil experiment, the day completely resets at 6 a.m., so it's not like he can count the days with tallies on the wall or something. While time exists in a metaphysical sense, it's far from universal. Clocks and calendars are something that we created to give ourselves structure and a frame of reference. In a place where there's no way to tell how much time has passed, time loses meaning.
It would take me a year to get good at this.
No, 6 months. 4 to 5 hours a day, and you'd be an expert.
Regardless of whether Phil was trapped for years or decades, he probably wouldn't have been able to tell the difference, and I doubt he cared one way or the other. Other creators have gone through and given some pretty educated guesses on how long they think Phil's trapped in the loop, so I don't feel the need to get into it here. I tend to think he's in the loop a minimum of 20 years just based on how well he plays the piano, but it's probably much longer. And whether it's 20 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years, with no way to measure this passage of time, it's basically eternity. Let's move on to the second part. Given eternity, a person will choose beauty. In the first few days, as Phil realizes what's going on, he defaults to anarchy. The realization that there are no consequences for his actions means that he can do whatever he wants.
No tomorrow. That will mean there will be no consequences. There will be no hangovers. We could do whatever we wanted.
Understandably, though, the novelty of debauchery quickly wears off, and it hits Phil just how truly trapped he is. This is an interesting phase of the movie where director Harold Ramis deftly guides Phil's emotional journey with the 5 stages of grief. According to an article published by the LA Times in 1993, as a guide, Ramis and Rubin used Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's ideas on the stages of death and dying: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Dr. Travis Langley also wrote an interesting article for Psychology Today in 2020, which I've linked below if you're interested in a more in-depth explanation of the Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief and how it relates to Groundhog Day. I'm not sure if the film does it on purpose, but I also noticed that as Phil explores these stages of grief, he also conspicuously commits all of the 7 deadly sins at least once before he moves into the acceptance phase and begins to better himself. Pride.
Someday somebody's going to see me interviewing a groundhog. Think I don't have a future.
Greed. Wrath.
Phil Connors!
Ned?
Envy.
For your information, Hairdo, there is a major network interested in me.
Lust.
Phil.
Gluttony. And sloth.
Is located near the city of Guadalajara.
What is Mexico?
Leslie.
What is Mexico?
Correct.
Lakes and Rivers 400.
There are fan theories that Phil can't exit the loop until he conquers all 7 of the deadly sins, but I tend to think it's a little less specific than that. When Phil exhausts all of his more malevolent ambitions and enters the acceptance stage of his grief, his focus turns to trying to get Rita to fall in love with him. His intentions aren't terribly pure at first, but as time goes on, he begins to focus less on Rita and more on making the most beautiful day he possibly can. This is what I mean when I say choosing beauty. Phil isn't necessarily seeking something aesthetic, but in chasing Rita, he discovers how much beauty there is to be found in the world around him.
But standing here among the people of Punxsutawney and basking in the warmth of their hearths and hearts, I couldn't imagine a better fate than a long and lustrous winter.
Moping around, chasing girls, and destroying things doesn't do him or anyone else any good. But helping others, learning an instrument, reading books, and making ice sculptures with a chainsaw passes the time in a way that's a lot more constructive. Even though he's trapped in one place on one particular day, he'll never run out of beauty to pursue. Destruction is finite, but creativity is unlimited, and I think this is what Phil realizes as time goes on. No matter how long he spends in the loop, there will always be one more beautiful thing to do.
Winter, slumbering in the open air, wears on his smiling face a dream of spring. Ciao. Ciao.
I think this is quite poignant on the part of Groundhog Day, but I also don't think Groundhog Day is the only piece of media to tug on this thread. Another film that plays into this theme is Denis Villeneuve's Arrival. This might strike you as an interesting parallel because it's not really a movie that deals with time travel or eternity, but I'd argue that it does from a certain point of view.
A certain point of view?
Louise Banks is a linguist brought in to help humans learn how to communicate with a group of mysterious aliens that have landed on Earth. These heptapods, as they're called in the film, perceive time in a different way than humans do. Instead of perceiving time linearly, they experience the past, present, and future simultaneously. As Louise learns and becomes fluent in this heptapod language, it alters the way she experiences time. She sees the daughter she'll have, the love they'll share, and how devastated she'll be when that child passes away at a young age. She sees all the turmoil of the future, but she also sees the joy that that child will bring her. She isn't given eternity, but she's given access to her future and chooses to take it as it is. Sparing herself the pain and hardship of love and loss would also rob her of its beauty. I'm sure there are other movies that play with this idea, but my personal favorite, and the last one I want to discuss, is the movie About Time. About Time follows a young man named Tim, whose father James informs him that he can travel back in time to any point in his own life by standing in a dark room, clenching his fists together, and thinking of where he wants to go. What this basically amounts to is Tim having unlimited do-overs as he goes through life.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! 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 No!
This is such an interesting take on time travel because there's never a high-stakes event where Tim has to save the world. Instead, the time travel feels almost mundane, being useless just about as often as it's useful.
Best night of my entire life.
I think this is a great choice on the part of the filmmakers because Tim can never use his time travel to solve any of life's biggest problems. Those he has to solve on his own.
Big lesson number one. All the time travel in the world can't make someone love you.
This is what makes Groundhog Day and About Time such an interesting comparison. You might not think of Groundhog Day as a time travel movie, but it is. Phil just travels back to 6 a.m. on February 2nd every morning and can't control it. And due to the nature of Phil's predicament, all he can do is focus on the mundane. In the same way that Phil spends a functional eternity in the time loop, Tim has a similar access to as much extra time as he'd like. He can redo the same moment as many times as he wants, and he can further travel back in time within a trip in time, kind of like how the guys in Inception can dive into a dream within a dream. Due to the relatively arbitrary nature of Tim's time travel, he comes to realize that its only real use is in the pursuit of beauty. He can't use it to change the course of history, but he can use it in smaller, more personal ways. There's a scene at the very end of the movie where Tim's father has passed away, but through the magic of time travel, Tim can still go back and visit him. This changes, though, when Tim's wife is about to have a baby. Due to the sensitive nature of conceiving a child, traveling in time to before the child was born will result in you having a different child when you return. Since Tim's wife is about to have a baby, this will be the last time he can ever go back and visit his father.
I get you. This is it then.
What follows is one of my favorite scenes in all of film. Knowing their time is short, Tim and his dad elect to take one final rule-breaking trip into the past, doing their best to be extra careful so the butterfly effect doesn't change anything. They skip stones, walk on the beach, and soak up the sun together one last time. Given eternity, Tim doesn't choose money, power, or fame. Given eternity, he chooses to go back and relive one truly beautiful day.